Hello and welcome to another podcast of DD on the Spot. I, of course, am Ryan Johnson, and today I'm joined with Quinn Ryan from the band Mint Vintage. They are a sub-pop, alt-rock doo-wop group from Duluth who have a few singles on their YouTube channel, which I will be putting in the link below. Quinn, great to have you on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So before we get started about your music and your style of music and what you entailed going through the process of creating that music, why don't you give us a little bit of backstory about yourself? Tell us where you're from and how you got into the music scene.
I'm from Minnesota. I'm kind of from somewhat of bumfuck nowhere. I'm from Annandale, Minnesota, which is kind of like in between St. Cloud, Monticello, and just like due south. But that was definitely like a unique upbringing. I was born in a town of 187 and like raised in a town of like 3,000. So I don't know. I was usually kind of like the odd one out. I was while everybody else was listening to country music and just kind of just drinking Bud Light and going out and mudding trucks. I was usually just like at home messing around on my acoustic and listening to like punk music and oh my gosh, hip hop. But I was raised in this dinky little town. Pretty much like worked my whole life since I was like 12 as like a professional gardener for like a bunch of different estates. And after I ended up graduating high school, I was like, I need to get the hell out of here. So I moved up to Duluth because it was close enough. It was like close enough to where if something like happened, I could still like get like help from family, but like far enough away where I felt like I could actually like be an individual. Because so many times like siblings would be like, yeah, I'm out in California, and my everything was stolen. Help. Yeah. And I didn't want that to happen because I'm not the luckiest dude. So like, when the universe senses that you're down, it usually gives you a kick for good measure. But I don't know. As far as like music and kind of like where I started really getting into, like I was always into listening to music. Me and my buddies would be just driving around, just burn cruising and smoking cigarettes, listening to like either we'd listen to The Current somewhat, but we'd always be listening to KVSC, St. Cloud's College radio station, which is super dope. They have like a really eclectic mix of like stuff that they do, and they have a really dope like area for like live performances. Like it's kind of weird, like you don't college station like actual funding to do stuff. But I would always be like listening to that, and there's like been like a couple different times where I'd be listening to that and finding just like new artists that were just like weird and like completely interesting. Like that's how I got into like the Japanese punk scene.
Oh wow, which, Japanese punk.
No, like Japan, like especially like the late like 80s and like through the 90s and like 2000s, like had like a pretty like dope punk scene with like the Blue Suns and like Eastern Youth and trying to remember. There's just like so many. I like got deep into that for a while through KVSC, and
that definitely put you like in a group of your own though too, because not that many people you hear talk about say that they're in the Japanese punk.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where like people would be like, oh, so you like that, like, because whenever you talk about Japanese music, they think that you're gonna like show them like the opening song to like an anime or something, and I was like, nah, this is just some like crusty dudes that were like cross-dressing and just like trying to mess like with the system, and like they're actually like punks, and like this song goes, and then I'll show them and they'll be like, okay, that's actually like really catchy.
Yeah.
So but yeah, so I'd be listening to like a bunch of music through like that, and honestly I've been looking back at the music I used to listen to when I was like a kid and a teenager, and like I never thought I was angsty, and then I like listened to like a bunch of the stuff and was like, oh my God, like I never even noticed how politically motivated like everything I listened to was.
Oh yeah, like I was always in Nirvana when I was really really young, or like Rage Against the Machine, and then now when I listen to those lyrics, I was like, oh holy crap! Like I just loved them for the melodies and for the beats, and I was like, what they're actually singing about, man, that's like some heavy stuff. I think that's what you got to do though if you want to like it helps you get famous, like especially if you have a way of getting political with your message but making it so catchy that some people might not be able to recognize it, because then you attract both sides of the audience. You don't just say like, oh, I'm really for those people who are for this or against this. That way both sides can enjoy the music. So I think that's definitely a key. So it says here you went to UMD, you studied theater there, and you were also a DJ there. That's a really interesting experience. Could you tell us maybe a little bit more about what being a DJ was like?
Oh yeah, this kind of goes into like my love for KVSC. Like as when I got there, they do this like orientation thing where it's called Bulldog Week, and it's like a week where all the freshmen are pretty much like huddled into groups, and they are lots of people just like don't do it, and they like move it onto campus, and then they just like fuck off and like drink for like 7 straight days, and like that's usually like I ended up not doing that as much. I actually like went through the program because I'm not the best kid, but like I'll participate every once in a while. But they make you do like these 3 different like workshops, and one of the workshops I saw was for their college radio station, and I like beelined it to that.
Yeah.
And upon like getting there, I talked to some of the people there, and like especially some like past DJs, and what I quickly found is like, at least at like UMD, I'm guessing it's maybe not the same with like every like college radio station around, but like everybody there that I've met is like really cool, like super dope, down to earth. They just want to listen to like good tunes and like have good times, and their parties are like what I was looking for. So I ended up I was doing like music committee, which would be we'd listen to like some of the new music that was coming out, and like collectively as a group we'd decide if it fit the criteria for the station. And from that I ended up getting into DJ training, and then I DJ'd for like 2.5 years. Just I started out like in the graveyard shift doing like 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. and like I did like 2 semesters of that, and that was like terrible, especially that second semester I was living off campus, so I'd have to walk like 21 blocks uphill like during blizzards and stuff, and then at the end I'd walk back and I'd just like be like loaded up and just like all my winter gear. And but as after that like second shift, the program director was like making the schedule, and he hit me up and was like, usually like we wait like a couple years to like give like someone like more premier spot, which was like 9 p.m. to 11, which so you can still catch the buses. And he's like, usually like I wouldn't have it like give it to someone that's like been in it like as short as you, but like I forget what song. Oh, he says like, yeah, I was like listening, and like you'll play like Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots, but not like part 1. You play part 2, which I know a lot of people like know the part 1 because like that's just a dope Flaming Lip song. But then like the second part is just like this like super heavy bass line and just like screaming, and I just like open my show with that and just be like, hey, yeah, now you're listening to me. Let's go.
So because I was gonna wonder, because I always wondered, how do DJs choose their music? So is it completely like 100% up to you what you play, or do they give you like sort of like a list of like stuff that you should play, or how does that work?
It depends on station to station, especially UMD's college radio station is kind of unique in the scope that they give you, where they do have like a certain criteria, but since like they pick songs and we have like a giant CD library and like vinyl library in the station, which like there's like more of like a daytime, like because we're still a college radio station, but we're also like public radio. So the mornings are more like aimed towards things like jazz and folk or like soul, and kind of like more towards that like older audience. But as it like becomes more to like that 9 p.m. like nighttime, then they like let it over to the students, and that's where like you really see like people can start getting like creative and get like weird with it. And a lot of the music that's chosen is pretty much on like criteria of like who is the music director at the time and like who liked it. And from there, the library is all set up, so you can just like if it's in the library, it's like fair game. So the only criteria after that is we have it so that you play 12 new songs, 12 old songs, and oh, Felix is coming in. Our husky. He's just exploring. But so 12 new songs, 12 old songs, and 6 hip hop tracks. So, because it wasn't as much of a problem like then when I was there, but in the past, like hip hop wasn't something that like everybody just like at least dabbled in.
Yeah.
It was like people would be like, "Oh, I only listen to alt rock. I only listen to blah blah blah," and then so to keep people from just like playing like the same stuff and like pretty much trying to force them to branch out and find new things. Mm-hmm. Is kind of how we set it up, which I feel like just turns you into a bigger DJ, like a better DJ, especially like going through the library. Once we got it like alphabetized, you could see like there were definitely like bands that like people hadn't heard about, but then like totally got on their radar because they'd be looking through and they'd realize like, oh, the OCs, what's that? We have like 14 of their albums, or Ty Segall, like we have like. Oh my! I think we had literally had like 18 Ty Segall records.
Wow!
And yeah, because that dude just like puts out like so much music, and I don't know. He also like changes it up too. Like that's just like his music too, not like his side projects like Fuzz, which is just like super heavy fuzz influence, and just I love that dude. I really wanted to go see him in St. Paul. He was doing like a solo set. But spaced it. But yeah, especially like for choosing your music, a lot of it does have to do with like what you're into. A lot of people like were more into like dance and electronic stuff, so you'd have like people that were one of our DJs was like a diehard Justice fan, so you'd always hear at least like 2 or 3 Justice songs throughout his set. But especially with like the new music that you'd be getting in, like it pretty much also forced people to be keeping up with what was coming out. And so that might be like, oh, we got like this really weird like Inuit throat singer that just like makes super spooky music, but it's like around Halloween, so like this is great, like play this. Or it'll be like, yeah, we don't add Christmas albums, but we added like this one like Christmas album by like this New Orleans like trans artist that just like made like the super like sexualized like Christmas album, and it's hilarious. So especially with like the close-knit community of DJs, you would have a lot of like back and forth and discussion between them. So if someone was like really hyped on something, then that would just like go to the next person. Then like we'd be pretty much all gushing over like this one band together collectively as a group. And so in a lot of ways, it built like a unique kind of sense of musical taste, but also like definitely like let us all like keep on the up and up on like what was like coming out, at least in like the indie brackets and other brackets. Still just exploring. Oh, bye-bye.
Yep. So so I mean, how much did that really influence you, since you already told me that you were already in a band before that, but how much did that kind of influence you, like, as a creator of music, to, like, maybe explore new realms, new genres of music, to maybe start singing and, like, writing?
Oh, I feel like it influenced me, like, a lot. I mean, I was always, like, during that time before I was a DJ, I was writing music, mainly, like, writing, like, super sad folk songs on my acoustic and just, like, jamming out, but the more music I like listened to, that was just like, rather than just like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of people like have like those couple bands that they're like really into, and like I said, they don't really like deviate, but like doing that forced me to deviate, doing that forced me to like find a lot of things that I typically wouldn't have listened to like to start out with, but then I found I like really enjoyed it. And then especially like writing music, you always are looking for like elements that like you can take to like bring back to like whatever you're creating. So like I definitely feel it did influence me in that regard. So I'll like, because my big thing with the band is I don't want to like get typecast into something, or I mean, not, at least not like quite yet. I feel like a lot of bands like they define their sound like far too early, and they're like, we're gonna be like a garage punk band from blah blah blah, and then like it's only after like they do like 2 or 3 albums that they like really solidify into like what they are. So like I've been pretty much every time they're like, oh, we need to like narrow down our set, and I'm like, no, we need to play whatever we want to play whenever we want to play it, and then when something like really feels right, maybe we can go into that. But like I'll like always be like, they'll be like, oh, so are we going lighter? And I was like, oh no, I'm trying to like write a punk song with like Spanish influences and like a weird like major key that I don't know. It's always about trying to like mess around with it, because I feel like once you get into something that you're comfortable with, you get complacent.
So yeah, so when it comes to writing your music specifically, what influences you the most? Is it really like just average like day by day stuff, or is it stuff that you read, stuff that you watch on TV? What do you think? What would you say is your main influence when it comes to that?
Yes. um just like kind of like all of it depends on the day, it depends on the mood, it depends on like what you're trying to write. There's definitely some stuff where it's like, wow, there's just a lot of like political unrest and like anger going on, and like people are so like dismayed with like how society feels like it's going, and like how can I like channel that, like, because whenever I write music, I both try to like write it from like my perspective, but also in a perspective that like lots of people could like connect with and be like, oh yeah, I can resonate with that. And then sometimes it's like something as simple as just like, I'm sad about girls. I'm sad about like whatever is going on. And a lot of it just goes to like what I'm feeling at that moment, because I will like have like writing like prompts and just like kind of like start to write things out. But honestly, I feel like the best songs that I've written have been very just like almost like ad-libbed into like fruition, until like, and a lot of it's like you say a good line and then like write that down and maybe you'll come back to it later. But like one of our tracks, like Pavement, we wrote that song in 3 days. Well, it was mainly like we were jamming on it like one day, and then the next day me and my guitarist kind of like solidified the like skeleton of like how like the chord structures and changes would go, and then the next day I like wrote all the lyrics in like 30 minutes, because it was like the chord progression was like so catchy in our heads that like me and my guitarist were just like annoyed for like a day, because we were just like, it won't, like we were listening to like anything, like some of the most like poppy, like just like supposed to like get in your head, and like at the end of it, like we'd be like, no, it'd be like there still. So I was like, we just need to finish this and then just like have it done, and then like so yeah, that's kind of like inspiration is something that it's as you write music more and more, it's easier to like get into that headspace, but it's never something that you can just be like you can turn on. So like once you start to feel it, you just gotta like sit yourself down with like a notebook and like paper, because as far as like writing lyrics, I write the vast majority of the lyrics. At a time, our past drummer like had like, here are a couple like lyrics that I think are like cool that I want in the song. And I was like, well, none of these work as far as like spacing, so I'm gonna like Frankenstein them and stitch them all together in weird ways. So like you helped, good job.
Yeah.
But uh, everything else is as far as like writing and like a lot of the writing that like really goes into it is like collectively is more the musicianship
Yeah.
where our my guitarist Eli will be like, hey, I have like this riff, I have like no idea where to go with it, and then like we just hang out for like 10 or 15 minutes, and then it just like starts like exploding into like all these like different avenues. And especially once our bassist Tanner gets in the mix, like they're both, if it wasn't for lyrics, I'd be like the major weak link, but
Yeah.
but I can do that, and I can sing. So like I'm solidified enough, but like they're both like our guitarist is like
You all pull your weight, we'll just say.
I pull my weight, but they're both also like really great musicians, and they definitely like make writing like catchy, like really cool parts like super easy. Like once we had like old bassist as well, but that ended up not working out, and then like we were talking to Tanner, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm not like that busy, so I would love to jam," because I remember like playing music with him like 2 years ago, and I knew he's like a vocal performance major, so he's also like doing like he's like doing operatic stuff.
Oh,
Like
wow.
in April he starred as Figaro in The Marriage of Figaro at like school, and that was like super
Jeez.
amazing. But yeah, so we're like playing through like some of our songs. It's like, well, there isn't a recording for this. Like, you listen to like this one song, so like let's just try this. And like he like is just like sitting there, just like intensely like listens to two measures, and is like, oh yeah, for sure. And it's like doing crazy runs, and he's like, oh, so is that good? And it's like, dude, you played like better on that song than like our bassist that was playing that for like 3 months.
So
So
when
like,
you're writing down your material, is making it rhyme more important to you, or is it just getting the material down of what you have in your mind?
I mean, I don't know. I guess it like as far as like some things can rhyme and like that works. Also like sometimes rhyming isn't important. It depends on the section. I feel if anything, a lot of it goes with like feel, if that like makes sense.
Yeah.
Because sometimes like a passage not rhyming is like kind of like abrasive in that way that like it kind of like perks you up and is like, oh well, that didn't like really like fit very well. It's like it's kind of because some things should definitely like,
It can get the audience's attention for sure.
yeah, it
Yeah.
can get the audience's attention, and if it's something that's like, if you're capturing like an idea well enough, and it's like in its own way kind of like a poetic statement that can like make up for it, like by no means that doesn't mean you can just like word vomit like whatever you want.
Yeah.
But I mean, like it depends on like what you're trying to write. I feel like there's in some points you can have like some kind of like eloquence that you wouldn't have otherwise if you were like just focused on like trying to like awkwardly like rhyme stuff. But at the same time, um, I feel like it's a balance of the two. You can't just like do one or the other. You have to like fit them both in at the right time, and a lot of it like it goes into group consensus as well. So because we're always trying to be collectively happy with the piece as a whole, and I feel like me and Tanner have more of like I feel like we'll focus on like vocal melody lines and stuff like that a little bit more, and but then both like Tanner and Eli will be focusing a lot on the musicianship and like different riffs and like what part could like really like bring out like the solo while still like being like kind of unique and not just being like, oh, let's just like do the chorus over again over this. But
So when you write, When you write, do you already like in your mind when you're writing down the lyrics, do you already have like what the music behind it's going to sound like, or do you just present them with a bunch of lyrics to the other two guys that you said are mainly into the music and just say, find a riff for this, find what the background music is going to be like for this?
I'd say it's always the if I have like lyric ideas, I'll kind of like stash them away, and if like at some point they like can fit into something, I'll like definitely go for it. But a lot of times, at least with our writing, is we get like the backbone of like how the song is gonna be like formatted and go as far as different like instrumental parts, and then after that we'll just like jam through it to the point like where we can all like play it like in our sleep, and I'll just kind of like wait for a day, and then like because usually it's like I'll just like really be feeling it, and then I'll like write like half of the song or the whole song in like a sitting, and because I feel like if I'm trying to like force it, it's not gonna be as like much of like a good product. But then like once it's kind of done, I never like am just like okay, wrote lyrics for this. This is just like done. We're gonna put a cap on it. I definitely will like sit on it for a number of days and like listen back to it and like edit it after that. It's just kind of like a first draft, but I feel like it's easier once we know like how the song is gonna go instrumentally to figure out how I want to mess with stuff as far as lyrics, because there's also a lot of like things that go into it that I keep in mind that like it's never like that much of a big deal, at least with like music, to do things like you can almost kind of like recycle different phrases throughout the songs, because a big thing that like sticks into the human mind, at least with like songwriting and like having something like stick in your head, is like repetition. So like you take like a line from the beginning and then you put that in like the final verse, and it's like you kind of have half of it, but then you like put a spin on the end, and like people are like, "Oh, well, that reminds me of the thing back there."
Yep.
I'm paying attention.
Yep. Yep.
But
So how did this band get started? I mean, I know you said you were in a band before before college. So how did you find these guys to start a band with?
I found Eli from we'd had a what was it? We had public speaking together, but we never really talked during that. I just knew he was in the class with me for a while, and my freshman year roommate, apparently they knew each other through like some way or another. So he was like, "Oh yeah, my two of my friends are up from Minneapolis, and we're gonna like go like chill out." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, I'll meet them. That sounds cool." And we ended up going to this like lookout over Duluth, and Eli was in the group too, and I was like, "Hey, I like know you from there." I was like, "Yeah, we have this class," and like we kind of started talking and talked about music, and it was like, "Oh yeah, we should jam," and we ended up like playing like little music every now and then, and started becoming just like friends and actually like hanging out besides just playing music. And then I think it was in December of 2016. Everybody was back for winter break, and he was trying to get everybody to come out to Minneapolis because his band was playing the Burnt Waffles at like the Driftwood on like Nicollet, and I think it's either Uptown or no, that's not Linden House. Yeah, I think it's in Uptown. So we ended up going there, and they were playing, and I was super blown away by there at the time. Eli was playing bass and hadn't risen to lead guitarist, but he was a really good bassist, and he was grooving out super hard. And then their lead guitarist and singer Max was just like going ham, but like Max like writes like interesting songs, but like as far as what he wants to do vocally, I don't think he has the range for like what he wants. And after they were done playing, we were hanging out and after party, and I was just like really sloshed and just like, I would love to be your singer. And that following summer, I ended up living in Linden Hills with my sister and like working a bunch. And they were like, "Yo, let's expand the band." So I ended up taking the mantle as the lead singer. Our buddy Joe, that we had also been jamming out with in Duluth, he played saxophone, and then Eli was on bass, Max on guitar.
So he got all the girls playing the saxophone, basically.
Hmm.
So then you had the kind of the band made up, and do you remember the first gig you played with the Burnt Waffles?
Yeah, it was the first and only gig because we had to we pretty much spent like the whole summer like practicing since everybody was like working, but we had like this practice studio in like downtown, and we were getting prepared because at the time Griffin's I guess now ex-husband, and I think he's in the process of divorcing him, but he got us a gig at 7th Street Entry, and so that like we could do like a headlining gig if we so wanted to, and we just needed to get like a lineup. So we had that like months down the line, and we were just like grinding because it was it would have been one thing if they like just wanted to do a gig, but they had 2 new members, so we had to like really, I had to learn like all of their songs. At that time they had like a whole album, and we were also like writing songs at that point, and also we were doing some of my own songs, and we would try to like practice as much as we could, but sometimes like things didn't really like follow through as far as like meeting up weekly, so a lot of it was having like partial band practices, and sometimes we'd have the full band and sometimes we wouldn't, so it took a minute to like really get comfortable with how we felt doing like a performance. But once the time came, like we were all ready, and we just did that, and then immediately like the band broke up because everybody was going back to college, and at that point it was Max is going to be a neurosurgeon in
Jeez.
Colorado and at Boulder, and at that point he was probably going to be like staying in Boulder, and then Griffin's husband was kind of crappy about it, just being like telling Griffin that he probably like shouldn't do band stuff, and he should like try to like figure out some like other stuff, like even like as a hobby.
Yeah.
Like, and kind of like got Griffin all like messed up about that. And
so he was
Griffin
the
was
Yoko
in
basically of the
Minneapolis.
group.
Yeah, no, he totally was.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Then me and Joe and Eli all went back up to Duluth. We ended up like forming for like us a second. We had like a little like group, and we'd perform at like some like open mic nights, and we would perform at like this like food plaza, and we'd get like $10 and like a free pizza or something. But yeah, we were performing, and they're like, we were like, oh, what should our band name be? What should our band name? And I like jokingly was like, oh no, We Do Crimes, and everybody was like, yeah. And I was like, no, wait, no, let's have more discussion of it. And then we Do Crimes, and I was like, this is kind of
We Do Crimes. That would be that's actually one of those names where you think like it's so stupid that it might actually work.
yeah, right?
Oh yeah. So when was your first when did you guys kind of like break through and get out of that like $10 and free pizza type of gigs? When did you finally like get like your first like official gigs?
Well, I feel like it started out with having like the house that me and Eli are living in now, because it actually has like a really nice setup for actually being able to practice.
Oh.
And Eli's dad, I guess at this point he made it sound like he was giving him his drum kit, but it's more like on loan. But we had like a kit in the basement, so it would be we would kind of like jam out a little bit, but for like Mint Vintage's start, it was Eli's buddy Paul would show up, and he knew how to play drums, and they would just kind of like jam out. And like usually, I would have been jamming out with them, but I was otherwise occupied for one reason or another for like those first couple practices. And Eli ended up showing me the riff for Scratch and Sniff, and then we ended up writing Scratch and Sniff and started jamming out. Then our buddy Braden got in on bass for a minute, and it was just like us like jamming, trying to like play stuff. Like they were trying to like do a Tool cover, and like we were playing like Foo Fighters and like some Jet covers. And then after a minute, we were like, hey, maybe we could actually like be a band and not just like do covers and like write our own stuff. And it started out, we did a couple like house shows after like a couple months of like jamming out, and like we were all like ready, but like there were some band members that like weren't coming along as quickly. So we had like a couple like lineup changes, and eventually it was after like after we had like a decent amount lineup where like we only had like a couple like covers in our set list, and we were just like writing enough like songs and felt comfortable. We were like I don't know, like some members in the band were like more nervous, like can we really do this? And I've been like performing for like years, whether it's like theater or it's just like me solo with like an acoustic, and pretty much at that point it's like you either do it or you don't. If you don't, like, yeah, that sucks, but like you can always like do it again and like do it better. So I was just like, just send it.
You guys, yeah, exactly. You guys were just getting a little bit of stage fright. I mean, you just got to get on out there and just try it out. You never know.
You never know. And like the only way to get better, like whether it's like, yeah, you can keep like hold yourself in the practice studio until you feel like you're ready, but like in the end, like no one's ever like really like ready. You just gotta do it and keep doing it. And like that's where like a lot of bands are on their prime when they're touring, because they're playing their set like constantly, like nightly, or they got like a couple days like rest because they're driving like 3 states over to do another show. But yeah, you just gotta keep playing music. So after we started getting gigs at this local LGBTQ bar that's near and dear to my heart. Yeah, it's a really dope venue space because it's like 7 co-owners. They're all like really good friends of ours. It's like an art gala and like a music venue, and it's unlike a lot of like the venues in Duluth, which I feel kind of like they'll stick like to similar genres where they'll be like, this place kind of normally just has like folk or like bluegrass, or this place is like a coffee shop but it has metal shows all the time for no reason.
What's the name of the LGBTQ place?
Blush.
Okay, giving a big plug to Blush. Everyone who's in the Duluth area, go check out Blush.
Yeah, if Blush is also located right next to the Flame, which is the only nightclub and also like gay night. So it's like that center of like those couple buildings is because it's like the gay nightclub Flame and then Blush, and there's just glitter all over the sidewalk, like covering
glitter in the bathroom, glitter everywhere.
But yeah, Blush is dope, and they have just like really eclectic shows. They'll have like DJ nights, they'll have punk, they'll have metal, they'll have jazz, they'll have like disco pop, and it's a really cool place, and it's just really inviting, and it's just all about like letting you be who you want to be, but also while respecting others and looking at some cool art and drinking some beers.
That's all it's about. So also, I was going to say, when you guys had your first show, let's be honest, you're playing in Duluth, you're probably going to be playing in front of a bunch of college kids. They're going to be so drunk listening to you guys that for the guys that were nervous, they probably won't remember too much, and they'll probably give you guys a good reception regardless, which is like the perfect thing to practice with. And plus, we are in Minnesota, so it's going to be all passive-aggressive, even if there was a shitty performance. They'll just be like, oh, well, you guys were really great, yay! So, yeah. But, you also had a funny story when we chatted a couple of days before this podcast. You had a funny story about a sci-fi convention that also helped inspire you musically wise. Could you tell us a little bit about that story?
Okay, yeah. I quickly found that like the drug culture of sci-fi conventions is like way more prominent than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
I thought it would just be like a lot of like people just being like, "Oh yeah, like let's get these like plushies or like let's buy like this merch," which it rightly is.
Mm-hmm.
That is like a lot of sci-fi conventions. It's the community, but like yeah, lots of stuff that I didn't think I'd be like encountering. Like lots of Molly, lots of like Coke, and like people walking around in like the parking lot with like um open bottles and just like, "Hey, who wants to drink some of this? I got like a whiskey Coke in this bottle.
Jeez.
Everybody like come and like, I got so much in my car. Don't worry about it." Uh, but yeah, it was just wild, just like being messed up. I remember I was like hanging out with like 8 people, barely able to stand at like 2 in the afternoon because it's just all day, and it's like
Yeah.
4 days of just like yeah, the culture of like um just being like a geek in general
Hmm.
because it was going into like anime and like sci-fi, like manga, like pretty much all like scopes. It wasn't like a convention that was more grounded into like this is just like Star Trek or so it was just a whole bunch of like different like communities like converging together
Yeah.
and but I'm outside and there's like this chick that I don't even like know what she's wearing, but she has like 2 or 3 speakers on her back and she's just holding like a Game Boy that she like took like just messed up all the insides and like it has it pretty much as like a remote to like make programmable like 80s video game noises that she's
Wow.
just pressing in like no particular order and it's just like like Space Invader noises like Pac-Man just like all this and just like walks by like with the most like look of just like I need to get to this place but like no destination at all
Yeah.
and just like everybody just like fell silent and after she left everybody's like did that just happen? What was what was that?
So what were the hotel rooms like? I mean, were you guys staying at the DoubleTree?
No, there was a bunch of shuttles to like different hotels because
Oh
like
yeah.
I hadn't planned, I had no idea what I was getting
Yeah.
into, and I ended up meeting like a bunch of people there, and so the first night I ended up like crashing at like this hotel. Oh, that also leads to like the like I kind of became a meme that night for like
Oh wow.
a couple different groups in like Minneapolis. So I did the sensible thing, and at like 5 in the morning, I was like, "Hey, you're going to sleep? I should do that."
Yeah.
And I went to go crash, and then my buddy Sam is still like out, just like getting crazy, and like thinks that he like legit lost me. Like his first is like I got this kid too messed up. Now he's just prowling the streets of he's like probably in like Richfield or like wherever right now and oh my god, I messed up. I messed up so much. So he's like literally for 8 hours straight walking to everybody and their mother just like, "Has anyone met Quinn? Have you met Quinn? Have you met?" And so people are like almost getting like done with him like asking
Hmm.
this question and he's like I finally get back to the DoubleTree at like noon
Hmm.
and he's just like he's like going back to his car, I think like getting ready to like go sleep in defeat because he's like I just like killed this kid. He's dead.
Yeah.
It's done. And then I just like run up and like he's like so happy. He goes from like being like I'm going to sleep right now to like we're like walking back. We're going back to the DoubleTree. Everybody needs to know that I found Quinn. So there's like people like I don't know and like and Sam just going, "We found Quinn." Like people I have no idea who they are. It's like fucking finally. Ugh.
That's great, man. That's great. Yeah, I would have never known that those sci-fi conventions had such a drug thing. I mean, but then I guess, I mean, those people do have like a lot of imagination in them, so I think maybe some Molly would definitely help with that with that imagination of theirs. So
They're also kind of rave kids too, so like they're
yeah.
definitely like ravers and stuff. And like,
Yeah.
you might as well just if you're feeling it.
Yeah, that definitely seems like something that people should check out, and I might have to go give that a look see myself. So when it comes, we'll talk a little bit more about Mint Vintage now. So when it comes to playing a live show, what is that feeling like? Because a lot of people don't get to experience that, just like the high that they get from like performing off people and like getting the feedback from the crowd and just knowing that they're digging your groove or that they're really just having a good time. What's that feeling like for you, especially as a lead singer? I mean, the drummer and the bass player can get high enough, but I think it's the lead singer that might get the most out of it because you're the one who's just vocalizing and they're getting a lot out of you personally.
I feel like a lot of like the high in performing is, I definitely think it's interesting like watching like what people do, like, because there are definitely some people that they'll direct the crowd, and that's sometimes like super fun because I'll just be like, we'll be like right before like a song, and like it'll be like a thrashier song, so I'll just like be looking around and it's like, okay, I'm feeling like a mosh pit, but not like not there, not over there, like right there, like right here, and then like we'll get like 3 notes in and everybody's like knocking tables over. It just gets like wild really quick. So that's like, I think that's like one of my favorite things to see, but especially like when we were starting out, it'd be cool to see people dancing, but now we'll have like people like crowd surfing. And like I remember for our we did like a homegrown music festival like in May, like the beginning of May, and we were playing like Pavement, and there was a part when it got to like there's like this muted part for like the second verse, and everybody started like getting like really low to the ground. It was just
are you gonna start fist bumping like Jersey Shore?
I was like, what's going on?
Yeah. So that's awesome. But when you go on stage or whatever, do you still sometimes get that like nervous feeling like before you start singing, or is it one of those things where like once you arrive there, the nerves kind of wash away, or do you still sometimes just be like, oh my god, but then as soon as you start you're fine, or how does that work for you?
I feel like I've kind of worked that out of my system. Now it's just I kind of get on stage and it's like, if I mess up, I mess up. I just gotta like, because that definitely happens. Sometimes like you make mistakes, but especially like playing with these guys, we're at the point where like we mess up and like we pull it together really quickly.
Yeah.
And honestly, like I upon like realizing that like when you mess up, like a lot of the people don't even really know the songs, so they don't even know that you messed up. Yeah. And like you're feeling like, but the main person that's gonna know that you messed up is yourself, and all that goes into is like trying to do better like the next time that you perform. But as far as like getting really nervous about it, I just feel like, I don't know, I'm over it. It's better to stay cool, calm, and collected, and like you end up like playing better. And I just try to not do it. Also, beer helps.
Yeah, I bet it does. I bet you got to get some of that liquid courage before you go up there. So, what would you say is the biggest venue you've played at, or the largest crowd?
Biggest venue? I'd say like the biggest in terms of like where I was like, oh my god, we're actually here, was like 7th Street Entry.
Oh, wow.
As far as like capacity, I'd either that or Honey.
Oh yeah.
But the largest the largest capacity, like the most people, was definitely at that homegrown music festival at this bar called Sir Ben's, because the homegrown music festival is like, it's not just like one venue, it's like every bar in Duluth is just having like 4 or 5 artists play a night, and there's like over 200 artists. But this bar was so packed that I could just like see people all the way back, and they were like literally there were people outside too by the doors. There was just like it was nuts. There was like so many people, and then again, like someone was also like crowd surfing there too, and I could just feel like the anxiety of the bartenders being like, "Oh, those lights are really low. He's gonna break it."
Yeah. So when it comes, how do you guys, how would you guys like distinguish yourselves from like other groups in Duluth? Because like you said, there's over 200 groups. What would you say would, when someone looks at you, they'd be like, "Oh, these guys are different from the rest." What would you say is like your signature sound?
I'd say like I don't know. I guess we get a lot of throwbacks to being like some stuff. People will say like we're almost like early 2000s like alt rock. Some people will say like we're more like almost like a pop punk group.
Mm-hmm.
I've had people say that we could definitely be the next Remo Drive.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, oh.
I was gonna say when I first heard your songs, I definitely did get like that early 2000s kind of like pop stuff. I mean, it's like it's very like dreamlike, some of your songs, and like melodramatic kind of like those type of songs. So yeah, I definitely got a feeling with that. And when you're not performing, what is the recording process like for you? Like when you're recording your music, what does that entail? Like what do you go through? Who do you talk to like get your music like recorded, or do you guys just do it yourself?
We do stuff ourselves for now, but we're also like pretty like all of the recordings that we have right now are to us demos. Right now, like we'll record it like all in our basement, and then like get like the drums laid down and make sure they're all like timed out correctly, and then like everybody else will like put down their like instrumental tracks and build it up that way, and then I'll like end up having vocals done after everything's like pretty much all set up. Who we're talking to are going to be like meeting up with and seeing if like we can maybe record with him is Huntley Miller. And he's the dude that he recorded the last Bad Bad Hats record, Psychic Reader.
Oh.
And he was talking to actually my guitarist's dad, because he used to be involved in a lot of like punk and like alt rock bands in like the 80s and 90s. Like he was doing like really like weird industrial stuff in like the early 80s, and was good friends with like, and still is good friends with like the Dead Kennedys, and was signed to Jello, the lead singer of the Dead Kennedys label. Yeah. And so we kind of have like some connects there, but also the more that you like perform to, like we're trying to figure out who we want to like record with in the end to actually have like a solid like EP to start out with, and then figure out who we want to actually like record an album with and have like master it. Mm-hmm. Because with the amount like we've also like been playing around, we've been finding some people ourselves, but then also there's been a lot of people that have been like reaching out to us saying that they want to work with us.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of like looking at their past works and like figuring out like what we want, and then there's also like pricing issues, because like we could spend like $800 or $1,000 on like a 3-song EP, mm-hmm. or like we could have some dude that's like up and coming do it for free, but then that might also not be like, it could be really good or it could like not be, especially. Absolutely. But then it's also like, oh, that's pro bono though, so like free is free. Oh yeah, we're still figuring it out, and we're talking as a group. And at this point, I think we're just trying to like save up some money as far as like if we want to record in like that sense, or if in the end we just want to like have like a pretty alright recording, and then just like focus on like merch and touring for a minute before we can get like some more fans and like more cash to get like a full studio length album. Mm-hmm. So, and then also there's talks about like things like getting signed to like labels, and if we want to do that, or if we want to like stay independent.
Yeah. So you also said that you guys were planning a tour next year. Do you guys have any locations that you'd be like more inclined to play at, or do you guys have kind of like an idea of where that might be?
I think it's probably going to be more like a Midwest tour, like out like Wisconsin and different parts of Minnesota, maybe even like Dakotas or like Chicago. As far as like actual like solid dates, because we're having to do another bit of a lineup change at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Our drummer ended up not working out, so now we're working through four different drummers and seeing who's going to be the best fit.
Mm-hmm.
But once that is all taken care of and we're back up to speed, we definitely want to go on tour this next summer. And especially since we've been playing so much music in the area and networking with a lot of bands, if we want to set up a tour, it could be pretty quick to set up tour dates because there's so many people that's I've been touring for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Here's all of my contacts, just call these people and set it up, and then we're not too worried about it, but we're also trying to not get too ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
We want things to be in order before we are really solid on setting up shows, because it's no fun to set up a show and then end up to not be able to do it at all.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what I think a lot of people want to know too, especially me, is how do you exactly set up a tour? Do you just call the locations and say, "Hey, we're an up and coming band. You can listen to some of our stuff. Do you guys have any dates available?" And then you just coordinate that into a schedule, or do they sometimes reach out to you and say, "Hey, do you guys want to go on a tour and you can be one of our stops?" How does that really work?
A lot of it is finding just setting up kind of your what path you want to kind of follow as far as roads, and you want to go to this date, time, this place on this time. And it's easier the further out you put it, because if you're trying to go to a venue that's usually pretty booked up for the next 3 months, and you're we're going on a tour next month, can we go there? I don't know, a lot of it goes with how you send out emails. So pretty much you want to give out a nice introductory email, usually some links to your music, and you usually want to choose something that's really easy to access, iTunes or SoundCloud, something that they can just click on a link and go to. The less chance that there's a bunch of steps that they have to take to find you out is the more likely they're, if it's just a click away, then they can just be okay, yeah, I feel this, you could probably do a show with this or whatever. And I feel it's also easy if you are not just touring yourself, but you're touring with another band, because what also goes into it is sometimes the venue will help set up
Mm-hmm.
other bands to play with you, or sometimes you'll have to just be asking around oh, what bands are around Green Bay, Wisconsin that can do a show, but yeah, it all has to do with timing and coordination with bars, whoever is sets up shows there, because it's like anything. Some people are really good at it and they're always on the up and up, and they're super organized, and some people aren't, and you have to just make those extra steps to fill in the cracks.
Yeah, and when it comes to the money side of performing live in concerts, do they come back to you with an offer? Or do you guys wait till you get there? Or is there a set amount that you guys know before you're going, or do they just say once you arrive we can discuss finances? Or how important is that to you also, knowing ahead of time what the pay is going to be, and how you guys are going to be able to support yourselves on tour?
I mean, a lot of it really it depends on venue to venue. Some places do they do percentage of the door cover.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of places, if there is a touring band, they'll even just give the majority of that to the touring band, because they know that it's expensive to tour. Some places do a set we'll pay you $100 to do this. And I mean, as far as with touring, you want to have I always feel more comfortable. You want to have a stash of cash, for just try to be eating cheap and stuff. You can maybe try to live out of the van or whatever, or crash at people's houses.
Yeah.
But also you definitely want to have a bit of an egg in case whatever vehicle you have craps out. Yeah.
Yep.
But then a lot of it too, if you're traveling with merch and it's relatively affordable, that's like where a lot of like the money is, as far
Hmm.
as like you can make money on a tour, but if like uh you're not like going really to sell like uh merch and stuff, you might like lose money. You might gain fans, but you might
Yeah.
like down the road like lose cash. Because I mean, I feel like tours are pretty good as far as like promotion,
Hmm.
but it also depends. Like a lot of places, like if you're a touring band, you're probably it's not like very wise to like headline. You also want to like know like what place you want to be in the lineup. Because usually, like if you have like a local band that like the locals like a lot,
Hmm.
and they like are playing before you, and then it's you, those locals might not stick around once that band is played.
Yeah. Absolutely. So when it comes to you guys as a band, where you see yourself in the future, in the next year, maybe like the next couple of years, especially with the tour coming up, maybe next year.
We shall see. I mean, I feel like we all want to like keep playing music. If we all could just like keep playing music together, we definitely will. But I feel like a lot of it kind of goes with just like how like these next couple months goes. Like especially if we want to like stay independent, for sure. If we like, if we get signed to a label that's like a little bit more constricting, but that also helps with like promotion. And I feel like if we start getting like more momentum, I feel like a lot of the other members will be like, yeah, let's stick around and like keep going. Especially like Tanner said like in the past like multiple times, like I'm a music major. I have no idea what I'm doing after college.
Yeah.
I have to
Absolutely.
like yeah, I have to like I might as well play in a band, and I found a band, might as well just stay in the band.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um but I think yeah, if once we like tour, we hopefully we can have like enough money for like a studio album, but yeah, we just want to like have like a solid, good recording of like an album. I think we might do what actually Remo Drive did with their last album, which is because when we're in like the writing like scope, like we can like just make songs like a factory. Like back when we were like writing like really intensely, like we got like 8 songs down, like it was nothing, and then we had like another 7 on like the back burner. It was only that like our old drummer didn't really have as much of like the time to like put into actually like writing, so it'd be a lot of like we'd go through our set list, and then he'd just leave immediately, and then we'd be like, but we were gonna write things. So we haven't been able to actually like write and finish songs for a while, but
Mhm.
with this new drummer, hopefully, like we can just get back on that train. So, but what Remo Drive ended up doing is they actually made like 20 songs,
Yeah.
and then they compiled their album down to the best like 10 songs that flowed together
Hmm.
best. So in the end, they made like a lot more solid of an album, because there's a lot of like, oh, I guess I didn't really mention it. I was the DJ. I was also the student music director at KUMD. So
Oh
like
yeah.
I also did the deciding like what bands I want to add and like what. So I've also from like that like promotional like standpoint, I've seen like a lot of like do's and don'ts that bands do.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, as far as like some bands will just have like 22 songs on an album, and like 2 of them are good and the rest of them are just like there.
And they'll put them in
And
like the middle or the back of the album too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or like yeah, there's lots of bands that'll just be like they come out with an EP and they literally chose all of their good songs, and then the album is like underwhelming as a whole.
Yeah.
Um, but I've seen like a lot of like things that like people do like wrong with how they like formulate their album, like things that they could do better. So I feel like I also have like I wouldn't say like an authority, but I have like a good enough an opinion on like
Yeah. A good enough
where like things can
understanding
go.
for sure. Yeah.
yeah, like where to go with like as far as talking with my bandmates about things or talking with like record promoters or record producers of like what I want and what I think would be like cool. Because I know like when those hype albums would come in, like you could see like they were like a grade above like a lot of like the albums that were like coming out. You'd see like I could get like 60 albums on a day, and I might add 3 of them.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I feel like a lot of people like put a lot of like energy and like love into their music, but I feel like also a lot of people like just don't take a lot of time with it.
Yeah.
There's definitely artists that have had like, oh, well, this is your 4th album I've gotten this year. Like maybe like take a moment on it.
They just want to be factories and just grind out their music just to try to get as much publicity as possible.
The only the only band I've seen actually do that and be like, wow, this is like surprisingly like super dope is like King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, which they made like 5 albums last year.
Wow. Okay. That's awesome. And you were also talking about merch. Do you guys have any merch yet, or have you been working on it?
We've been working on so far what we've got is stickers that we're ordering like soon. We're just going to be getting like a crap ton of those. I think we might like try to like set up some pages on like our Bandcamp or maybe like our own website to like sell some of those, but that's what we're starting out with. But we do have like our own personal like graphic designer. That's his name's like Matt Wright. He's one of my old like roommates and good friends, but he does like really dope work, and he's just been like pumping stuff out for us. So after we get like a little more cash, then we're gonna definitely like spring into like t-shirts and hats, and like honestly I think like bottle openers would be kind of sick. Like keychain bottle openers would be dope.
Or coasters too would be another good idea for you guys.
Yeah, I was saying that we should like make our own mints.
Oh yeah.
But everybody shot that down. It's like that sounds like way too much. And I was like, yeah, but that'd be hype.
It'd be original, man. I mean, I think, and it's just any way that you guys can get your presence out there and just get your band recognition. I mean, it works, because I definitely think if you did like a mint or something like that, no one has ever seen that. I don't think I've seen it before from a band, so I'd be like, oh, this is weird. These guys are definitely like trying to do something new. So I think that could be positive. And before we end this podcast, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about your songs that you have on your YouTube account. You can follow them on their YouTube account, which is your YouTube account Mint Vintage, is it right?
Yeah, I think it's either Mint Vintage or Mint Vintage Band.
Yeah.
But
I'll definitely leave a link in the bottom below too once we figure this out.
Yeah. So we have right now 3 singles. I'm not sure if they'll be on the final EP. I'm pretty sure when we do a studio recording, Like Pavement will be one of them. But those 3 songs are Like Pavement, which is just a song about finding that you're kind of going a little too hard in the paint and the feels, and then needing to take a step back.
Yeah.
And then a song, Oh Darling, which is about falling in love with a friend and being like, gotta stop that. Haha. Pretty much the same thing, but they're different, I swear. And then Scratch and Sniff, which is more kind of like politically motivated, and I don't know, kind of doesn't have like as much of a rage vibe like with the actual like instrumentation, but I just feel like as far as like message a little bit more. But yeah, check those 3 songs out. Maybe you like them, maybe you don't, but like for sure, at least you tried.
I seriously think too, for all my listeners, that you guys, Quinn has a very, very distinct voice, and when you hear it, it's almost unlike anything you've ever heard. I really think that you will enjoy listening to his songs. I mean, just on the voice alone, but the melodies are great, the riffs are great. It really seems like these guys are an up-and-coming band that you guys really got to pay attention to. You definitely let us know when you guys get an album released or an EP released, and then I'll definitely plug it on here for my other things. I'll keep it on a link on our main page. And we definitely will keep in touch, and it was great to have you on this podcast. We will definitely have you on at a different time. Maybe next year we can have you back on before you guys go on tour, and we can talk a little bit more. But, man, it was great having you on tour. It was great having you on this podcast, and just take care, man, and we will talk again soon.
Yeah, it was great being on it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Brian.
Yep, no problem. All right, see ya.
See ya.